Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more session on Azure Administrator. All right. First, let us look into the agenda that what we are going to discuss in this particular session. Now, in this particular session, we will be looking at how to create additional disks and assign that to a Unix-based operating system. We'll either choose Linux or Ubuntu, and how to create and manage additional disks to Windows Virtual Machine. We will have a discussion on different virtual machine types and sizes, and we'll see how to resize a virtual machine and do a couple of management activities of virtual machines like starting, stopping, deleting, deallocating, etc. Okay, this is the agenda for our session. Now we already know how to attach a we already know how to attach a sorry how to create a virtual machine, right? Now we will create one virtual machine and we'll attach a additional disk to that. Now before that, let us understand what is the meaning of a additional hard disk. Okay, let me share my whiteboard. Okay, now let us say we are creating one server. Okay, it could be any server. Now when we are creating a server, this server is getting some storage space. Okay, I will show it to you guys. When we are creating it, we are getting some storage space by default. Now let's say the storage space for the server is around 50 GB. Now this space is not enough for me. Now what I need to do, I need to, if it is not allowed, what we will do, we will purchase additional hard disk and attach that additional hard disk to the server, right? Similarly, on the cloud, uh, instead of purchasing, what we need to do, we need to create this additional hard disk. Okay, we need to create. Okay, we need to create this additional hard disk. Once we create this additional hard disk, we can assign this hard disk to this virtual machine. Okay, now this virtual machine could be Unix based, and this virtual machine could be a Windows based virtual machine. Okay, till this part, creating of hard disk process would remain same either for Unix based operating systems or Windows based. But once we create hard disk and attach to the server, we will log into this particular server, and we need to create a file system. Like to see the additional hard disk, we need to run a syntax called as lsblk, which stands for list block, and we need to run something called as fdisk, and we need to make a file system, etc. So we will see how to, once this hard disk is given to the server, how to access that particular hard disk on the server. Okay, that is what we are going to look into. Now what is that? For the first hands-on exercise, I will create a Ubuntu server and log into the Ubuntu server. After that, we will create a hard disk, assign the hard disk, and we will see the new hard disk on the server. Okay, let me shift to my Azure portal. Okay, I'm on my Azure portal now. Let me go into this virtual missions. Okay, inside virtual mission, choose an option called as create Azure virtual mission. Select the resource group. The default, I will select the resource group as demo rg, and the virtual mission name, I'll give it as demo additional hard disk. Okay, and the region US, East US is fine. Image Ubuntu is fine. Okay, and the size is fine. Let me give the username and password. Let's say I'm giving the username as Satish and the password as my desired password. All right, and SSH port is fine. Now, if I till now we are creating with all the default value, I mean the minimum parameters that is required. Now, if I go into disks, okay, now you see there is only one OS disk type. Okay, OS disk type, it is SSD. And is there any additional disk? There is no any additional disks. Okay, the default disk, whatever is coming with the server, we'll be able to see that. Let me choose this option, review and create. Okay, let me select create. Okay, now the virtual machine is getting created. uh, you see the deployment is in progress. First we will look on the Unix based operating system, and then we will see the same thing on the Windows based operating system, how to allocate a additional hard disk. Now if you see, the deployment is in progress. Okay, this will take another 30 seconds. Okay, the deployment is in progress. Let us wait for another 30 seconds. Okay, now you see the virtual machine is created. Let's choose an option, go to resource. Now let me take this public IP address, and to connect to this server, let me choose the tool called as putty and give the public IP address, select option open, accept and give the username and the password that we have used. All right. Now I'm logged into this particular server. Okay. Now I'm logged into this particular server, and here I'm logged in as my user. Let me change that to root user. Okay, I'm a root user now. Now let us see what are the hard disks that are available now. To see that, we can use a syntax called as LSBLK. BLK stands for block. Okay, LS stands for list. That means I'm telling, show me all the block devices, hard disks. Now you see there is only one, which is the one which is default. Okay, which is mounted. A partition is created. Okay, now let me create one additional hard disk and come back and run this server and see whether that will be displayed or not. All right, let me go back to the console. On the console, let me go to the virtual machine that I have created. Okay, now you see in this virtual machine under settings there's an option called as disks. Select that. Okay, to create a new disk, if there's already disk, we can select attach the existing disks. But when we are creating this virtual machine, there is one default hard disk, right, which is of 30 GB is there. But now let me create a new hard disk and attach to that. Select option create and attach new disk. Select the size as 20 GB. Okay, we can choose any of the size that we need and give a name. Okay, I'm mentioning it as additional. So the storage type is also there, which is local redundant. That means this will data will be stored in multiple places, etc, etc. Okay, but as of now, premium SSD, which gives a very good output, that is fine for me. Okay, so now for this particular server, I'm giving a 20 GB additional hard disk. Select option save. Okay, now it is creating the disk. and attaching to the server. Both are happening at the same time. Okay, this will take about another minute. Let us wait. You see, it is showing us updated virtual machine. Now, let us go back to the putty again. Okay. Now, let me use the same syntax lsblk. Now, it should also show the additional hard disk that we have attached. Now, if you see, there is 7 GB, 7 GB. Now, you see, there's a 20 GB hard disk also we can see. And what is the name of the hard disk? It is SDC. That is the name of the hard disk. If I want to see the full name of this hard disk, okay, I can use something called as F disk. F disk stands for format disk hyphen L. Okay, what are the disks that has to be formatted? Show me the list. Now, if you see here, this 20 GB hard disk, what is the full path? The information about this hard disk will be saved under a folder called as dev. So the path of this particular hard disk is /dev/sdc. Okay. Now, any new hard disk that we give to a system, the first and foremost thing we need to first, let me increase the font size. Okay, we need to format the disk. Okay. Now, let's say, okay, this SDC is the name of the disk, right? So now F disk, no, SDC is the name of the disk. To format it, F disk, I have to give a full path /dev/SDC. Okay. Now if I give enter, it will ask, I mean, if you're already familiar how to format a disk, you can go ahead and format a disk. If you're not familiar, you can use M for help. It will show the list of all the available options. If you press A, this thing will happen. If you press B, okay, etc., etc., multiple things will happen. Now, if I want to create a new partition, you see there's an option called as N here. This will help us to create a new partition. Select option N, enter. Okay. Now, whatever disk that I'm formatting, this should be a primary disk or it is an extended disk. By default, Unix based operating systems allows 4 primary partitions. Now if you see, 4 are free. Okay, so I will choose it as a primary. The default is P, just enter it. And then what is the partition number? It is choosing the default as 1, but if you want to change to 2 or 3, you can do that. I will choose default 1. And what is the first sector, last sector? I will choose the defaults. Okay, created a new partition. You see, there is something. How do I save now? W is for write table to disk and exit. So give W, enter. Okay. Now the partition table has been altered. To rewrite the partition, you can call it. So now let's say I will again use the syntax called as lsblk and enter. Now you see, there's a partition that is created. Okay. This is a partition that is created for this. Now, let me make a file system on this particular partition. To make a file system, it will be mkfs, make file system -t. The file system name is ext4. Where I have to put, it will be there on /dev/sdc1 on this particular partition. So now you see, SDC is a disk. The partition that we created on this is SDC1. Okay, and enter. Okay, now it is saying writing superblocks and file system. The partition is been created successfully. Okay, now let me clear. Now what we can do, we can simply create one directory. I am creating a directory by name demo and mount this directory to that particular partition that we have created. What is the partition? It is slash dev slash sdc1 and the name of the directory that we have created. Okay. Now cd into directory. Now here if I create any files, f1, f2, touch, f1, f2, f3, f4. Okay. Now all these files will be stored in this additional hard disk. Okay. That is how you can create an additional hard disk attached to a Unix based operating system and then mount it. Okay. So if you guys see, these are the different commands that I have ran to achieve this. All right. Now let me go to our agenda. So now the same thing, we will see how to create and manage disks on Windows virtual machine. Okay, this is very easy. Now let me first of all create a Windows virtual machine. Let me go to my Azure portal, go to virtual machines, select option create Azure virtual machine. So whatever we have done with command lines on Ubuntu, with commands, we will do everything with UI on Windows. Okay, I'm choosing a resource group, virtual machine name, Windows additional disk, and let me choose the image as Windows. All right, and the username, I'm choosing my name as the username. Okay, I'm giving the password. Review, if you go to disks, you see there is one default disk that will be assigned. Okay, there is no other additional disk. Select option review and create. Okay, let the Windows virtual machine get created. Once the Windows virtual machine is created, we will log into this Windows virtual machine. Okay, the initializing the deployment is getting initialized. Now the deployment is in progress. See, the deployment is in progress. Let us wait for another 15 seconds. Now the virtual machine is created. Let us select this option called as go to resource. All right. Let me take the public IP address. Let me connect to this server. I'm using remote desktop protocol RDP. This is the public IP address. Select option connect. More choices. Use a different user, and the username is Satish, and the password, I will give the password which I have created. Select option OK. Select option yes. Okay, now I'm logging into the server. Here we'll go and check the disk management so that we will see how many disks are presently there in this. And then we will go ahead and add an additional disk to this particular server. All right. Okay, just give it another 15 seconds. Okay, I'm using disk management.msc. Okay, this is a keyword to see all the disks which is there in this particular server. Okay, you see how many disks are there? There is one disk which is having 126.99 GB. Okay, and there is some temporary storage of 7 GB. That's it. Only two disks are there. All right. Let me go back to my Azure console here. Now this is the server, and under settings, let us go to disks. Okay. Now you see there's an option called as create and attach a new disk. Select this. Give a name for this disk. I'll say it as Windows disks, and let's say I want to create this as 50 GB. And if you see the minimum, it should be 4. Okay, 50 GB. And I can also change the name of this logical unique number. Okay, so LUN is basically called as a logical unique number, and then save. Now it is creating the disk. It will create the disk and it will attach to that particular Windows server. Okay, once it is done, we'll go back to the server and see whether we can see this 50 GB hard disk or not. And similarly, what we have done on Unix, like formatting the disk and creating a file system, we will do that both. Okay, it is updated virtual machine. Now let me go to that server. If you see in here now, we can also see a 50 GB hard disk. It is very easy on Windows. Now, but it is not initialized. Let me click on this. Select option, initialize disk. Click OK. Now the disk is online, but there is no file system. If you see here, there is an NTFS file system. Okay, for Windows, there is an NTFS file system. But this one, there is no file system. Let me create that file system. On Unix, we used ext4 as the file system, but on Windows, the name of the file system would be NTFS. Right click, select option, new simple volume, next, next, and you see we can assign any drive letter that we want. Okay, let's say I want to give this drive letter as I. Select option, next, next, finish. Now if you see, there's a new volume I has created and it is 49.9 GB. Now let's say open. Okay, that folder will be open now, and we can create a files here. Create a text file, new. Okay, now whatever data that we store in this, it will store in this disk that we created, given a drive name as I. Okay, that is how you can assign an additional hard disk to a Windows virtual machine and a Linux virtual machine. All right. Now let us understand about different virtual machine types and sizes. Okay. Now Azure has lot of customers, right? Now every customer will not buy a same type of configuration. Now that is the reason Azure has giving the options of different types of machines that will help the customers to fit into their requirements. Okay. Now let's say there is one virtual machine type called as general purpose. Okay, what is the use of this general purpose? Now let's say you want CPU and memory ratio in equal proportions. Like if you want to use this virtual machine for testing, or let's say a small business, or a medium traffic web server, then you can use a virtual machine by name or a virtual machine type called as general purpose. Now in the general purpose, there are different sizes, because I have a medium website. I have two websites. One website with medium traffic, one website with higher traffic. Then I can't use the same size, right? So in general purpose also, they have given different sizes. Like let's say the series will start with DSV3. Okay, or it can also start with something like DV4. Okay, um, it can also start with AV2. These are some of the examples of the sizes. Okay, now let's say if I put this as the types, and these are the different sizes. I mean, there are a lot of them. I'll share a URL for you guys to go through that. There are a lot of sizes. I'm just giving an example. Now let's say I want high CPU. I mean, here in general purpose, CPU and memory of the my system should be balanced. Okay, but if I want to use a high CPU ratio, okay, basically let's say I'm having a web server which is having very good traffic. Okay, I want to do some batch processing of data. I want to use this server as an application server, okay, where I require high CPU processing. Then there is something called as compute optimized. Compute optimized. Okay, so this type of server we can use for high CPU to memory ratio. So the sizes, there's also different sizes here. The sizes will start like F, FS, okay, let's say FSV2, etc. Okay, in this CPU ratio is higher. Now next we have memory optimized. So now if you look here, general purpose is CPU and memory same. Compute optimized, CPU is higher. Memory optimized, it is very obvious. Memory is higher when you compare with CPU. And the type here is something like ESV3. Okay, different sizes here. So now this is the type, different sizes. Okay, we will see each size how much we'll get. Okay, and you also have something DV2, etc. There are a lot of them here. Memory ratio is higher. All right. Next, we have something called as GPU type. Okay. Now GPU, it will start with N, something like sizes like N, NCV2, etc. Okay. So now what are these GPUs? GPUs are specialized virtual machines targeted for heavy graphic rendering and video editing. Graphic rendering and, okay, let's say for movies where there is a lot of graphic work has to be done, right? So if you want to use your virtual machine for that, we can use a GPU. And then we also have something called as storage optimized. Okay, there are different models like sizes in storage optimized like SLV2, I'm sorry, LSV2, LSV3, etc. Now obviously we know that if you want to store huge amount of data where your uh, disk throughput should be more, okay, this is ideal for something like big data. Okay, that is the use of storage optimized. And then we have one more type which is called as high performance. Okay, high performance compute. That means if you're expecting a very huge performance, Okay, you can use this type of instance, and there are different sizes in this also. The series will start like HB, HBV2, etc. Okay, I mean, this is basically used for fast, or let's say high performance. Okay, okay, these are the different types and sizes. Now let us go through the console and let me show you where do we select these different sizes or different types of virtual machines. Okay, let me go to console here. Okay, before that, let me also show you where you can see what are the different sizes. Now, if you go to the loan.microsoft, and here you can see different sizes of virtual machines. Okay, where there will be general purpose, compute optimized, these are the different sizes, etc. etc. You can see all that information in here. Now, let me go to this virtual machine. Okay, go here, go to virtual machines. Let's say create Azure virtual machine. Okay, now Now, if you scroll down, you see there is something called as size. Now, you see here that it is showing as standard. Now, if I want to see all the sizes, okay, here it is just showing few of the options here. If I click on see all sizes, okay, now you see it is showing the type as general purpose. Okay, if you expand this, okay, this is also general purpose. Okay, now you see these are memory optimized engines. So in general purpose version V2 gets one CPU. Version V2, DS2 V2, it is getting two vCPUs, right? Now, if I go into uh, F series, these are compute optimized. Okay. Now, if I go into L series, these are storage optimized. Okay. If you go into N series, these are GPU optimized. Okay. And if you go into this H series, E series is for memory optimized. Okay, so this is where you come and choose which type of virtual machine, what should be the size that you require. Okay, that is about different types of virtual machines and different sizes. How do you choose when you create a virtual machine? All right, so we understood how to create and manage disks to virtual machine, create and manage disks on Windows virtual machine. We understood VM types and sizes. Now let us see how to resize a virtual machine. Okay. Now that means we already choose a virtual machine type here. Let's say size. Okay. This virtual machine size, we have already choose this virtual machine. Okay. This is what current size is D21 version 2. But I want to resize that. I want to increase the number of CPUs. Now I'm getting only one CPU, right? I want to get two CPUs. What I can do, I can choose whatever virtual machine uh, size and type that I require and select resize. You see, resizing virtual machine. Okay, the virtual machine is getting resized now. That means the size of the virtual machine is going to increase because I have choose to increase it. If I choose to decrease the configuration, it will decrease the configuration. That is how we can either, that is how we resize the virtual machine. Okay, it is resizing it. Let us wait for a 30 seconds. Okay, now you see it is showing resized virtual machines. Now if you see here, the current size is standard DSAS V4 version 4. That is the current size. This is how you resize a virtual machine. Okay. Now let me go to our agenda again. Now the next part is managing virtual machine. Okay. There are different things that we can do while we are managing a virtual machine. Like for example, if you want to delete a virtual machine, um, stop, start, restart, delete, all this comes under managing a virtual machine. Now let's see how to do that. Now let's say if we want to restart a mission, okay, I'm there on this my virtual mission. You see there's an option called as a restart. Okay, before that let us stop the virtual mission. Okay, let's go to these virtual missions, and you see the status as running here, right? Let us stop and see the status. I'm going to stop this virtual mission, asking do you want to stop this. I'm saying yes. Okay, it is showing stopping virtual mission. This will basically stop the virtual mission. Okay, now let me go to the virtual missions and see the status. It is still running. Let me refresh. Okay, this will take about a moment. You see this is still stopping here. We can see stopping virtual mission. Okay, successfully stopped virtual mission. Now let me go to virtual missions. Now refresh this page. You see the status is stopped and deallocated. Okay, now let me go back to this virtual mission again. Okay, now once I refresh this, now this option start has been highlighted. Now let's say start. Okay, now this virtual mission is starting. See, starting virtual mission. Let us wait for a minute here. Okay, now the virtual mission is started. Let us go back to the virtual missions, and then you see it is in running state. Now there are two more operations with which we can do. One is we can restart a virtual mission. It is saying, do you want to restart? Yes. Okay, if I see it is saying restarting this particular virtual mission. Now we have given additional disk to this virtual machine, right? What will happen if I, okay, wait a minute. I'll tell you that. Okay, let this virtual machine get restarted. Now, while that is restarting, let me go to this particular virtual machine. Let me go to this option called as disks. Okay. Now let's say create a new disk. Okay, never mind. Let us let that get restarted. You see now again the status is running. Okay. Now let me go back to this virtual machine again. You see there's an option called as delete. We can choose this option delete. Say yes, I have read. Now if you see there's an option delete with this additional hard disk is there, right? By default, whatever disk that is created with this virtual machine, it is deleting. But it is asking us, do you want to delete this hard disk that we have given additionally? Now if you look into that, this is the hard disk that I have given. Now if you choose this disk will also be deleted with this particular virtual machine. That was the option that I want to show. Select that option, delete. All right. Now the virtual machine and the hard disk both are getting deleted. Now let me delete the other virtual machine as well. Select option delete. You can apply force delete as well if it is not deleting. Okay, I have read and understood the virtual machine that it is going to delete, and select option delete. Right, this would take about 10-15 seconds for these virtual machines to be deleted, because it has to delete the it has to unmount the hard disk, delete the hard disk, it has to delete the files on the hard disk, and then finally the virtual machine will be deleted. Let us wait for another 10 seconds. Okay, you see the first virtual machine is deleted and the second virtual machine is also deleted. Okay, this will take some time to disappear from the screen, but both the virtual machines are deleted. Okay, so let us see whether we covered all the topics for this today's session. We understood how to create and manage additional disks to Linux and Windows machines. We understood different types and sizes for the virtual machines, and we also saw how to resize a virtual machine, and we saw general operations of a virtual machine, how to delete, stop, restart, and delete. All right. Okay, that's all I got from this session, guys. See you guys in the next session. Take care.